make sure we're recording. I'll do some housekeeping things. So many of the folks, when we first started doing these webinars, we did a lot of explaining about how it all works. And I feel like by this point, Sarah, I think everybody understands, right?
Yep.
They know what the chat's for. They know how to use the Q&A. They know it's being recorded, that we will send you the slides, all the normal stuff. So with that, we are going to jump right into it. Thank you for coming. We are glad you're here. Who we are, a little company called Prenger Solutions Group. We're a small but mighty firm. I'm in Omaha. Sarah, our wonderful Director of Client Services, is in Lawrence, Kansas. We do fundraising consulting, annual appeal management. We do outsourced Razor's Edge database administration, and we do some fundraising automation. We're very proud of what we do. We have an amazing team of employees who work at all these great organizations on your screen. We also, as many of you know who use our service, have a little product called Ask Genius, which solves a very specific painful problem for nonprofits, which helps you set ask amounts for thousands of potential donors at a time, right? So when you're sending out direct mail and you need to come up with the perfect ask amount for everybody, that's what Ask Genius does. We have been doing these webinars now, Sarah, for I think 2 years. Can you believe that?
Flown by, that's for sure.
Gone by in a blink. So everything and all of these are readily available to you. We're actually revamping. Rob Sims, who's off screen, has been piloting this project for us. We've done so many of these webinars, and we never just had one like spot that people could go to say, hey, I want to remember what they talked about for donation pages or email strategy or social media. So we do expect by next week to have one spot where you can go and get all of this free advice that we share. If you find these webinars helpful, make sure that you sign up. We have a fundraising newsletter. It goes out no more than once a month when we have something interesting to say. If we've done a case study, if we've done a research project, if we've built out some new free templates, we'll always make sure to let you know through that. You can just go to askgenius.com and join the newsletter. And with that, let's get into it. So we have Sarah Aligo. Sarah is our expert at all things fundraising. She's the one we go to when we're talking about direct mail and year-end giving and all of these things. I think the first thing we have to start with, right, we have to recognize, Sarah, we talked about this before, direct mail is still the king of fundraising. Would you say that's true, Sarah?
Yeah, always is, always will be, no matter what anybody tells you.
What face do you make when you're visiting with a nonprofit client and the CFO says, oh my goodness, I'm so tired of having to mail stuff out the door. Let's just do an email fundraising appeal this time. How do you feel about that?
I'd like to say, let's test it out. We just won't send direct mail and see what happens.
Right? And believe me, we've tried everything under the sun, but the fact of the matter is you still need to send out direct mail. It's the core. The way we like to think of it is a delicious chili dog where your direct mail is both the hot dog and the bun, right? Online donation page is the mustard. And then you've got email and social media as your condiments. I dare anyone to come up with a better analogy for how fundraising works in the modern world. You cannot just have a bowl full of onions or relish. Nobody wants that. It doesn't work, but it's wonderful when it's added onto your delicious Chicago-style hot dog. Okay. So getting that out of the way, letting everybody know, don't just send an email, right? You have to have, if you're going to actually, if your goal is to raise money and not just spend your fundraising budget, if your goal is to actually generate revenue and bring it in, you've got to send a letter. Before we send that letter, so we're going to talk, and at the end of this webinar, we've got sample timelines. We kind of walk through when we would send things in November and December and what you should be working on. So between now and walking through that timeline, we're just going to share some tips and advice and all the sort of fun stuff that we've learned. We're going to go back to a case study. Many of you have asked about this before. We did a huge case study research project with one of our clients in Phoenix. And the whole idea was, well, what if we took their audience and sent a bunch of them heartfelt emails, like every 2 to 3 weeks. So we ran an A/B test for a giant nonprofit. Half of their donors, we sent them heartfelt personal emails every 2 to 3 weeks, just telling them how great they are. The other half, we kept doing what we'd always done, right? The normal amount of love and attention. And then we measured what happened. And what we found, we asked, do emails, did they increase participation? So on the left-hand side of your screen are the folks who got those heartfelt emails. On the right side, they got standard treatment. What we found was that those who received the emails were more likely to participate in the next appeal. How much more likely? 62% more likely. Okay, so if you're looking for a magic bullet to make people 62% more likely to give to your appeal, start sending them heartfelt emails. We measured, does it help with retention? So not only does it get people to participate, does it stop people from lapsing? And what we found was if they were receiving those heartfelt emails throughout the year, there's only a 6% decline, 6% lapse, versus almost 20% if we were not communicating them that well. So again, we're going to be about 3 times more likely to renew their gift if they're receiving that email. Do they correlate with larger gifts? Short version. I go through this quickly because I think a lot of people have grabbed onto this already and they know it in their bones, but we always got to remind, yes, when you email and communicate with people often, they are more likely to give online and they're more likely to make larger gifts. $264 average gift versus 107, which means it's about 2.5 times larger gifts. All of these reasons why you should be emailing your donors throughout the year. Not asking for money, just emailing them, telling them how great they are. They're more likely to make recurring gifts. I think this is the last one. People are like, oh man, we get it already. Email your donors. 3 times more likely to make a recurring gift. Okay, big takeaway here. You should all be emailing your donors a lot more often. Okay, so today is October. The last 10 months are already on the books, the last 9 months, give or take. You have a little bit of time left before the end of your appeal. What works are personal, heartfelt emails from a real person. Sarah, what do we mean by a real person versus what are we talking about there?
That means not making the subject from organization ABC. It's from Sarah Aligo. And if they don't know who you are, they're going to be interested enough to check it out and open the email and read it.
Yes, well said. We don't want to get an email from charity.org. We want to get an email from Brad Smith, from Sarah Aligo. That's what we do as people. As fundraisers on the line, we know people give to people. Okay. No photos or graphics. I will die on this hill because research and study after study shows people respond better when it is a text email. When it's overly designed, when there's a big banner at the top, it screams marketing. It doesn't scream I'm seen and appreciated. 8-to-1 nourishment ratio. Sarah, what do we mean by that?
Simply that for every time you ask for money, you should have nourished or loved on your donors or the individuals at least 8 times before then. That could be a thank you, that could be an education email, whatever it is. 8 times before you make an ask, make sure you're telling them something else and not asking them for money.
Perfect. That's the recipe. So if you think, oh man, our donors think we only communicate with them when we ask for money, 8-to-1 is the ratio you should have in head. If you hit that, you'll never hear that from donors. They're going to feel that love and that appreciation. Okay, this is roughly what that looks like. We talked about maybe 34 emails over the course of a year. Looks like this. About 30 of those emails are about impacts and appreciation. 4 are invitations to donate. Okay. One more thing before we get into the year-end giving. Let's talk about your donation page. Okay. And what used to be called a donation page, right? In the old days, Sarah, when you and I started out in fundraising, there was a donation page. You had a button on your website and it said donate, and you'd click on it and you can make a gift. That world doesn't exist anymore. We now live in a world where there are multiple donation pages and segmented donation pages, and they look like this. So for our clients, typically we're going to set up a whole bunch of sort of layer 1, level 1 donation pages. Like when we're inviting them to make a gift, we often like to promote recurring gifts. So we'll first send them to a recurring gift page. It looks like this, and you'll notice there are different ask amounts on those pages. So it's not one size fits all. It's this high level group is going to go to this donation page. This group's going to go to this donation page. We generally then have a sort of funnel that if somebody doesn't want to make a recurring gift, they can click to go to another page to make a one-time gift. So typically we'll have sort of a low-end one-time gift and a high-end one-time gift. If we're accepting pledges, we'll have a funnel that goes to the pledge page. And then we've learned we have to have also these standalone pages. So a signature donor page, Sarah, what's that all about?
Signature, we also like to call it a sophisticated donor page at times too.
Yeah.
So it's going to be for your more higher end donors. It talks about estate planning and other ways to give that aren't necessarily through a credit card or a debit card. It also allows them to make larger gifts as well. So it's just kind of more for a very segmented and targeted audience, not necessarily the one who may be just landing upon your main giving page.
So if we're sending out something to our best donors and they've been giving $10,000,
Yep.
It would be weird not to have the ability to give online, but we don't want to send them to the general public, so we send them to the signature page.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And then we might have a default donation page. You still do need, if somebody just wanders in off the street and wants to give, you do need to set some sort of default donation page. And then you probably also have a special project page, and that could be if you have a text to give campaign. Maybe you're doing something, with Giving Tuesday, which we'll talk about. So this is at a minimum, candidly, what your donation funnel should look like at your nonprofit. For many organizations, it's going to be more complex. And the good news is it's not that hard to create multiple pages. If you're in Razor's Edge, you just copy the code and you drop it onto a new page and you clone it out, so you can create it pretty easily. We get asked all the time, oh, but won't my donor know if we send them to like charity.org/high value donor or whatever it is that we call it? What we do is we will just set custom URLs for each one of those. So it might be your organization /appeal, your organization /donate, /sustain, /philanthropy, whatever it might be, something innocuous so that when you put it on that donor's letter, they have no idea that they're being segmented in anywhere different than their neighbor who got the same. Okay. If you have questions, make sure to hit that Q&A button and we can go over it. I know a lot of people have questions about how we set up donation pages and all of that. But for now, let's get into the topic at hand. Okay. Let's talk about year-end giving. I'm going to give you a couple strategies, and then we're going to walk through, Sarah and I, a timeline, a rough timeline of when we would do this, when would we send mailings and send emails and everything else. All right. Strategy 1, promote QCDs, qualified charitable deductions. As you know, Sarah, do you know the average age of the donor in the United States?
I do, because it's never changed.
Yes. Yes.
It's 68. It's been 68. It'll always be 68.
It will always be 68. It has always been 68.
Yeah.
Young donors are a myth. That is the age at which most people in the United States have their highest amount of giving. So QCDs are important, right? Because your main donors are right in that age group. So 2 dates to remember. At age 70 and a half, your donors can make a QCD, a qualified charitable deduction, which is a gift they can make from their retirement account to your nonprofit. And they can do it tax-free, which is a big deal. It becomes an even bigger deal at age 72 because you have to take distributions once you hit age 72. Excuse me. For those young pups on the line here, the way it works, all that money you're putting into your IRA and your retirement account, the government requires you to start pulling it out once you're hit age 72. When that happens, you will have donors who don't really need that money. And if it's been in a tax advantage plan, they don't want to take the money out because then they have to pay taxes on it. Right? So it went in tax-free and they're pulling it out, it's going to get taxed. So it becomes an attractive method of giving. So if you're over the age of 72 and you don't need that distribution to live on, many donors will then just donate it to an org and skip the taxes altogether. Okay. Make sense? Sarah, did I cover that right?
Yep. Sounds great.
Okay. So a lot of churches do this. We work with a whole lot of Catholic dioceses and they have a lot of Catholic churches. This is very popular, right? It's a card that you put in the pews or postcard that you mail out, just reminding folks, hey, there's tax benefits if you are over the age of 70 and a half. Okay. Strategy number 2. We're going to talk about focusing on your existing donors. So it's now, again, we're 80% through the year. I want to talk about a book that Eugene Schwartz wrote back in the 70s. It was called Breakthrough Advertising, but I love this quote so much. What he describes, and he's talking about advertising and copywriting. He says that copy, right, your letter, cannot create a desire for a product. It can only take the hopes and the dreams and the fears and all the emotions that already exist, and it can channel those emotions towards a product. That is the same thing that you need to remember when you're writing your fundraising letters. Okay. It is nearly impossible, no matter how great of a writer you are, it is nearly impossible to convince someone who does not care about your organization to make a gift to your organization just through a letter. That's really hard to do. It is much easier to take someone who already cares about your organization or has positive emotions about your organization and channel those positive emotions and feelings towards making a gift. That's the qualitative way to look at it. If we want to talk numbers, just talk about acquisition. If the reader is a stranger, a good response rate is about 0.5% to 1%. If they've donated before, 40 to 70% is really good. So yes, there is a time, Sarah Aligo, to go out and invite new donors in, right? I would posit that your year-end appeal is probably not that time. Is that fair?
Yep, absolutely fair.
Yeah. Who do you like to focus on in your year-end appeals?
Your Libont donors, if you're familiar with that term. So somebody that has already given to you, and more specifically, they gave to you last year. Don't focus on the people that gave to you 5 years ago. Focus on those who it's been 365 days or so the most and haven't given to you yet.
Yep, well said. Okay. Send them a little thank you note is always a good idea too. You can talk about that ad nauseum. Strategy number 3, make sure you're asking the donor for the perfect amount. Here's what we're talking about there. we, as we always do at PSG, run a whole lot of studies. A couple years back, we did a study with all of our client organizations. We wanted to know how were they setting ask amounts, what did the pledge card look like, because we wanted to find out the best way to create these numbers, right? When you get a piece of direct mail and it's got a remit or a reply device or a pledge card, what's the way that nonprofits were setting those and what worked best? It turns out there wasn't a whole lot of thought behind it. Most people were sending a one size fits all, or at most they were saying, hey, we just look at what they gave last year and then we increase it by 10%. Turns out that's not the best for a whole variety of reasons that we've covered in other webinars. But we ran a test and we did first group, everybody gets the same ask amount, right? The standard $100 up to $500. And then we had another group and we used personalized ask amounts. So it might range from the lowest end of $25 all the way up to, I think we probably had $1,000 or more, but we segmented it out. And then we measured what happened to people who were giving. On the left, standard amounts saw a 4.5% increase in giving, average gift, which is about inflation, right? That's what you should expect. If you keep doing the same thing year after year, when you get donors to give, on average, you might get about a 4% increase in what they're giving. What we found when we segmented out those donation ask amounts was a 29% increase in the average gift. So we knew that we were on to something. If we can set a personalized amount for everybody on our list, good things are going to happen. That's actually the tool that we built called Ask Genius. It looks like that. I think maybe everybody on this call is already using Ask Genius, but I will double check. If you're not, feel free to reach out. It's a pretty useful tool. It's going to end up raising you more money. Basically, the way it works is you can sync your database, then you can choose your strategy. If you want to be conservative and nice and easy, if you want to swing for the fences, you can do that as well. You can go right down the middle of the secret sauce. It's pretty great. You don't need to take our word for it because you can read the Wall Street Journal. Sarah, are you a Wall Street Journal reader?
Digital only, but yes.
That's right. It's all digital anymore. I don't even know if they printed anything. They ran a story back this summer, and it was all about what we're doing at Ask Genius. Now, it doesn't name us. It says there's this big research project done, and it turns out if you ask people for specific amounts, they're going to donate more money. Ask Genius is an easy way to do it. Feel free to reach out. If you're not using it yet, we'll be happy to hook you up. Let's talk about this. I think this is a fun one. Sarah, I've never done this. I'm curious if any of your clients have. One of those things that we recommend, and they always just kind of, they say, maybe someday. The idea of taking your email signature block and changing it towards the end of the year, right? So something like, hey, there's 30 days left to make a gift, make a difference and save on your taxes. X number of people have already donated this December. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very nice way to promote year-end giving without promoting year-end giving, right? They're going to be reading your email and your signature. So it's a nice way to put the message out there without putting too much work into it.
It's soft, and I like it for that too, right? As a donor, it doesn't feel pushy. It feels like, oh, I just stumbled on it. I think this should be our next test. I love the last one there. You know, the psychology of other people are doing this, right? People like you are doing things like this. Just having 400 people have made a year-end gift already, this month. That would catch my eye and give me a little bit of FOMO, a little bit of, hey, maybe that's something that I should be doing. I don't know how we could track it unless we put like a definite donate link right there. But I feel like it would help. Like if you're already sending letters out and then you happen to be sending some heartfelt emails and I'd already received your ask and then I saw that in your email signature, I feel like it would move me to action. We got to test that out. What do you think?
I love that idea. Yeah, and we just send them to separate giving pages, which is why you do that, because that's another great way to really analyze how people are giving to you and how they're getting there.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Strategy 4. I think we got maybe 6 or 7 of these, and we're going to walk through the timeline. A mid-December PSA email to donors, and I like this as well because this is the same thing. It's a way to ask and put in front of people. It's a way to show that lots of people make year-end giving, but without undermining whatever ask you put out there. So it looks a little something like this. Again, if you're a church, if you're a zoo, if you're a college or university, it's a PSA. So it's a notice saying, hey, number one, we really appreciate you. You're incredible. Did you know a third of all giving, or in many cases, half of our nonprofits revenue comes in the month of December. If you're considering a gift, here's what you need to know. Our office hours are open from here to here. You can always go online to make a gift right up until the ball drops. Go ahead and make a gift. Again, it's positioned as a service to the donor. Like, hey, here's a heads up. We want to make sure that you get your tax benefits. But it's just that, right? So it doesn't feel like you're asking them again in another letter. It's just an announcement. Sarah, what do you think?
No, I love this. This is actually one of my favorite emails to do every year, because inevitably you're going to have donors who assume your office is open and functioning and able to accept even physical checks on December 31st. So a lot of organizations, especially after COVID and other things, they shut down between Christmas and New Year's now, and there may be one person in the office, but they're not necessarily accepting gifts. So you're just managing expectations of your donors and giving them the tools to be successful in their year-end giving.
Love it. And if the worst thing that happens is you end up transitioning people from checks to online, good
Even better.
news, people donate about twice as much when they move
Yep.
online. Not just in the aggregate. It's not just that online donations are more. We've proven out that if you move someone from a check giver to an online giver, they generally give about twice as much.
Yep.
So if this helps direct people that way, all the better. All right. Consider a postcard. So it's the end of the year. You may not have a lot of money left in the budget. You could consider a postcard. I did some Googling and I found 12 fundraising postcard ideas. And here are PSG's 12 fundraising postcard ideas for you. Number 1 is don't do it. Don't send a postcard. All the way through number 12, because what you should do when you consider sending a postcard is you should decide not to send it. Sarah, why do we not like to send postcards?
One, they seem like a good idea because they don't cost a lot, but nobody's
Right.
reading them. I mean, really, you're going to get such a small return on what you're sending, especially if you put an ask into it. So just don't do it. There's better ways to reach out to your donors.
Yes. As a fundraising solicitation device, they just don't work. And I dare anybody to prove us wrong on this. There will probably be exceptions out there, and then I'll have to have a caveat on this in the future. But for every time this has been tried by us, by clients, usually it's driven by the strategy of not how do we raise as much money as possible, but hey, we've got a little bit of money left and I need to show some activity, right? I need to put something out there into the world towards the year and I only have a little bit of money left. You'd be better off taking that amount of money, dramatically cutting down the size of your audience list, saying the same amount of money you would have on a postcard and send it to a third as many people, but make it a letter because it's just going to work better. Okay. We wish it were different. We wish that we lived in a world where people could get an ask through a postcard and give. We do not live in that world. Strategy 6, for those of you that have pledgers out there, this is a great time to follow up on those outstanding pledges towards the end of the year. I will send you these slides again, so don't worry about having to screenshot or anything, but please steal this language because it works, right? Dear name, wanted to take a moment, say thank you for being one of our supporters. Here's some great stuff that happened this year. I noticed you had a pledge, and if you want to fulfill that pledge for tax purposes, you can do so up until midnight, right? So that's a really useful thing to let people know. I prefer to donate by check. So it's kind of a variation on the PSA, but it's saying, I see you, I know you have an outstanding pledge. Let me be of service to you if you want to make sure to get the tax benefits this year. And if somebody's way behind on their payments, if they haven't made any payment on that pledge, you can use this version, which might seem scary to you to act that you might write off a pledge. But the truth is, if they haven't paid on it in a long time and it's delinquent, you're better off sending this message, which is, I see you. I noticed you made a pledge, and I just want you to know if something happened, we can cancel that, no problem at all. You will save a relationship with the donor at the expense of a gift that you probably weren't going to get anyway, right? If they haven't made that payment. Okay. Strategy 7, ringless voicemail. Sarah, what do we need to know about ringless voicemails? What's a good use of them?
Yeah, it's a great way to thank your donors, essentially. And that's really, a lot of people like to do them or think that they can do them to make calls like, hey, there's still time to give. That's not what it's used for. Essentially, it's a nice nourishment touch to your donors to say, we appreciate you, we love you, and Merry Christmas or whatever it may be, right? So it's just a nice nourishment piece.
And it's sort of similar to postcards, I guess. Here,
Yep.
it's like social media. It's not good for solicitation. We've never seen it work where you can do ringless voicemail saying, "Would you make a gift?" We have seen it work many, many times where people just to delight the donors. So
Yep.
keep that in mind. The software that we use is Slide Broadcast. There's also a couple others out there. It's very affordable. You do want to check your state FCC regulation, FCC, and then also any state regulations. There are some states where you could get sideways if you're doing it as a fundraising robocall. That's probably enough to leave it there for now, just to give you that flag of make sure to look into it before you just go guns blazing. But if you're just thanking people, you're probably okay, but just make sure you check. Okay, let's get to the sample timeline here, and then we can answer any questions if people haven't. Sample timeline. Now through November, Sarah, I'll put them all up on here. You tell us, walk us through what we should be doing.
Yeah, sure. So now through November, which is hard to believe, but that's like a week and a half away.
Right.
shower your donors with love and attention. Essentially, love on them as much as possible, whether that's through email or social media or phone calls or handwritten thank you letters. Find ways to show them that you appreciate them, whether they've given to you this year or not. Especially the latter, because if they haven't, it might incline them to do so because they heard from you. So shower them with love. Come up with your audience and segments. Who are your donors who still haven't renewed their gift? Specifically your live ones. So they gave to you last year by this point, they haven't given to you yet, especially by now, or they traditionally give to you in November and December, right? So start strategizing who those donors are and segmenting them as such.
Is it
Go
okay,
ahead.
Sarah, to send, what if somebody has donor, what if they're not a live on their side, but what if they made their normal gift, back in your, your early fall mailing or summer
Yeah.
mailing? Is it okay to mail them again at the end of the year?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but just be realistic about what you might get from them. If done well, second asks absolutely can work. But if you've only got a certain amount of budget to do or to do one last push, I would really focus on your live ones and reach out to those who've already given in a different way,
Yep.
to love on them as well. Start looking at, again, who are your live ones, major donors. If you've got major donors who haven't made their 4 or 5 figure gifts by now, start making phone calls, create a list, hand them out to your staff. If you have one, if you're a party of one, put them, by a priority list and start reaching out to them for that. And start drafting your year-end appeal letter. Again, we miss you. We love you. You've done so many great things in the past. We hope you'll join us again. And preparing that data file that will go with it, and make sure that one size does not fit all. Make sure you're segmenting your donors. Make sure you're talking to your major donors who may get that letter differently than somebody who gave you $25. Both are essential to your organization, but you can speak to them a little bit differently as well. So make sure you're getting down personalized, not only with the copy, but with the data too.
Love it. Okay. So then we hit November. Tell me about November 10th. Is that a good date?
Yeah, November 10th. So essentially, letters arriving in homes is our goal early November. That allows donors enough time to sit on it, review it, and then still get you a gift back in by the end of the year for those letters.
And now we get to the point. Sarah and I have a fundraising disagreement that we're now going to air with the world. We're in 2 very different camps. And because we haven't tested it yet, we can't tell you which one's right, but maybe we will soon. I'm firmly in the camp of, I like to send heartfelt emails throughout the year. I think it's important, as we've covered ad nauseum. Then when the direct mail drops, when the person gets that mail, I like an email that's short and punchy and to the point. Hey, following up on the mailing you got, lots of donors were asking if they can give online. The answer is yes. Here's a link. It's very, that email after 30 love and attention emails is very transactional. Hey, here's how you can make a gift. Sarah, tell me the benefits of you like the other. You like to give a little room to breathe, right?
I like to give it a little room to breathe. One, because I like to be able to allow direct mail, which is king, to perform a bit before you kind of cut it off despite its face, right? So my recommendation is always a few weeks after that direct mail letter arrives in home, follow up that letter with you should have received a letter from so-and-so in the mail. Because if your direct mail letter is doing its job, which also promotes online giving too, you're going to catch a lot of that audience who will make an online gift too. So it gives you a little bit of breathing room to let the direct mail do what it's best at.
Awesome. And also probably maybe a little bit safer to give it some room to breathe if you're not sure when the mailing's going to hit, right?
Correct.
Have we ever had that happen where the mailing doesn't land on the right day?
Weird. The post office isn't always reliable, right? So even if you want it to arrive by November 10th, it's very possible that it may not arrive, nor will they check it, right, until the 17th. So
Right.
give it time.
Yep. Okay. Or don't. I mean, either way, this is so everybody on the line, go and do one of these. Let us know which one worked better, and then we'll send out a little PSA to everybody. Okay. Throughout November, this is when you can try out the signature blocks, play around, see what you can do with it. Continue with the heartfelt emails. Continue with that 8-to-1 nourishment ratio. Again, as Sarah said, that doesn't mean you're sending 8. You're packing in 8 emails because you have an ask coming up. It could be social media. It could be thank you notes. It could be phone calls. It could be any number of things, right? Just you want to make sure that you're not just asking, that you're telling them how great they are. Wonderful things happen when you tell your donors how amazing they are. Yep. Yeah. What do we need to know about Giving Tuesday in November?
Giving Tuesday, everybody knows what it is at this point. It's been going on for so long, decades now. So our recommendation on Giving Tuesday is don't let it just happen, right? You don't need to overwhelm your donors with information, but 2 weeks ahead of time or so, just let them know, hey, it's coming up. Talk a little bit about your mission, talk about the impact of your organization, tell stories to your donors as well, or to your audience that's following you. And then the night before, the day before, just remind them very softly, tomorrow's Giving Tuesday. We hope you'll join us in X, Y, and Z. So again, don't let it just happen. Do a little bit of build up to it ahead of time, and I promise you'll see some better results.
Excellent. Month of December. December 5th, if you are sending 2 letters, and to be clear, Sarah, I imagine probably 89% of our clients are only sending 1. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
if you have the budget and you do want to do 2 and you're doing the first one to hit November 10th, December 5th is your date for the second letter. Again, you could have a companion email. Any thoughts on options here, Sarah?
Yeah. So for an email for this purposes, again, one version could be a follow-up to that first letter that arrived in homes mid-November, right? We appreciate you. You received a letter. It's very complimentary to the letter they got. So they see that it's kind of a package deal. The other would be kind of a second version of a similar email to donors who've already given to you, saying, thank you, we appreciate you. And in both, the copy should include that end of year information. This is when our office is open. Here's when we're closed. Here's how you can make gifts. So 2 ways to essentially do the same thing.
Love it. Great. December 5th is perfect for that PSA email. The whole, hey, by the way, we know all of you love to make gifts. It's that soft, other people are doing it. There's no way to read that email and not realize, holy cow, there's a lot of other people that are giving to this organization.
Right.
That makes me proud. And I'm going to, make sure I get mine in. December 20th. Do you like that for a ringless voicemail date?
I love it. I mean, essentially, a lot of people, their kids are off school by that point. They're starting to really plan. You're not asking them to get on the phone. You're just having a voicemail pop up in their phone, and they're going to listen to it while they're cooking or whatever it may be, kind of with the family. So yeah,
I love it. December 20th is usually when I'm at Sam's Club, right? Or Costco. Like that's the time. Like work's kind of getting shut down. You're easing your way into the holidays. You go wander around, wonder what you need to get. You got family coming to town. Good time for that. Matching gift challenge. Again, this is an option. We have a lot of clients that do it with great success. Others say maybe they don't want to pack it in. If you do a matching gift challenge, end of the month of December is a great time to do it. So this would be, I'm gonna break down some walls here. Typically, maybe never does a donor actually make a matching gift, right? Rarely, and I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't know if I've ever seen a donor say, I'm making a matching gift. What happens is somebody makes a gift and then the development director says, hey, can I use that as a matching gift challenge? And they say, absolutely, because I love you enough to have given you the gift. And now I feel like I'm giving you another gift and helping you challenge other people. So you grab that gift, maybe it was made in October, and you share it with folks. You set it up as a matching gift challenge. 1/3 to 35% of all charitable giving is done in the month of December. A huge portion of that happens right in this window, right from Christmas to New Year's. People are looking at the end of the year. They want to support your organization, but they're also realizing there's a different impact if they give after January 1st for the tax purposes in the US. They don't give because of taxes. Taxes is the incentive for them to make the gift at that time, right? They could make it anytime, but they consolidate towards the end of the year. So if you're doing it, you can do a simple email one, December 26th, let people know, hey, there's this great challenge. A donor came forward. And if we can, every gift between now and the end of the year, they're going to match dollar for dollar or whatever it might be. Follow it up again on the 27th with a quick update. 28th, you can just do social. And then by the 30th, you're all said and done. You let people know this was amazing. You will get donations in the door. And really the gift is just that it brings urgency to it. You're not going to, through this email, a couple days before the end of the year, convince someone that's never given to your organization to suddenly support you. You will remind a whole bunch of people that have the intention to support you, hey, now would be a great time because we've got a matching gift challenge. Okay, so I will stop there. I know we have a couple questions in Q&A, so I'll get to those. Remind everybody, yes, we will send out the slides here before too long. If you'd like to know more about Ask Genius, just let us know. You can reply to the email when we send the slides. You can go to Ask Genius and set up a demo. Some of the Q&A. Great question from Dan about what are your thoughts on email drip campaigns? The short answer is we love them. So when we're talking about email drip campaigns, we're talking about, old way is the first Monday of every month, our nonprofit sends out a newsletter, right? It's a blunt instrument. Everybody gets it. We have a photo and some story in there. And that's kind of the old way. newer way, which is empowered by new software and things like MailChimp and HubSpot and that let you customize it, a drip campaign can be personalized to each donor to where, let's say somebody made their first gift to your organization, then 2 days later they get first gift email, right? Specific to them, sort of introducing you to the organization. And then there's another one that comes a week later, and then maybe a couple of weeks later. So it kind of drips along. It's fantastic. It's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about heartfelt emails. It lets you customize it to the donor. The hard part is just whether you have the software and your data in a shape that would let you do it, right? If you don't have email addresses, you can't do it. If your email addresses are sitting in a MailChimp silo and are not connected to your giving history, you can't do it. But if you have the technology, 100%. And actually, Sarah, I should probably plug automation right now, right?
Yeah, that's great.
What our team is doing for, if you use Razor's Edge and you want to get into this world of sending customized, heartfelt emails drafted from real people, you really got to check out this service called Automate Genius. I think we've even done some webinars on it. We can probably put a link in here that lets you really take your communications from that blunt newsletter into like personalized directly to the donor. It's incredible. It will blow your mind. We have clients raising hundreds of thousands of dollars because of this personalized email approach. So Dan, absolutely yes with the drip campaigns.
Well, and I would say too, just to piggyback on that, the nice part about Automate Genius side of things is that it is connected to the donor's giving information. So that leaps over that hurdle a little bit that a lot of other softwares aren't able to do.
Yes, well said. Okay, another question here. What do you do? How do you reach younger donors, 23 to 40, when we statistically know that they may not be opening letters? First thing is, yes, they will open letters if you send mail. Nobody just ignores it completely, right? If it looks like a bill, they might. So don't, and I think, Sarah, we've probably done webinars on this.
Yeah.
Don't send a window envelope. Don't make it look like a bill. Put it in an envelope that's going to get them to open it is the first thing. Don't give up on sending them letters, because if they are a donor, as you say in your question, those younger donors, they've given to you in the past, and it was almost certainly because of a direct mail appeal or they're at a special event. That's not to say that you can't send emails, right? I'm not telling people, hey, don't email, like it all has to be direct mail. If you're making an ask, it should be an anchor direct mail piece supplemented by email and social media, okay? The second answer to that is I would not overly focus on those donors in their 20s. They're hard, they're like unicorns, right? They're hard, they're like Sasquatch is probably more accurate. They're really hard to find. You know, like we always hear about them, and it's a big deal when you there's a sighting, but they're not powering your organization. The people that are powering your organization, helping you, accomplish your mission, are 68 years old, or near it, 5 below, 5 above. So yes, have a strategy to reach out to younger donors, but if your job is to raise as much money as possible for your mission with limited resources, I'm putting 99% of my energy and resources to where it's going to have a high ROI, which is our traditional typical donors who respond really well to direct mail. Sarah,
Well,
anything?
Yeah, and just remembering that 80% of your income is coming from 20% of your donors, right? So focusing on those younger audiences, you're doing your job if you're reaching out to those ages, but not necessarily sending them a letter every single, I mean, they are not and may not give through direct mail, but outreach through email, outreach through a letter. Eventually, they will give, and you're simply building that pipeline until they do. Constant reminders through the mail, constant reminders through social media and the email will do that for you, but you're probably not going to see what you hope from them for at least 20 years.
Yep. And that's a hard conversation. Lots of development professionals have to have it. It's usually the CFO. I'm going to be hard on CFOs. They say, hey, I looked and all of our donors are old. You guys got to really go get those young donors in the door. And then the development officer will spend tons of time and energy going after these young donors who really don't exist. And it's a waste of your time. So have a good website presence, have an amazing social media presence, make sure that you're, to the extent possible, customizing your emails and welcoming people in, and you're going to be fine, right? Do not sweat the fact that most of the time your donors are older, because that's just how it works, and that's how it's always worked. Okay, I'm going to wrap up there. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. You'll get our email with the recording to this, and of course the slides and any other great links that we mentioned here. I want to thank Sarah Aligo. Sarah, we don't have you on nearly often enough.
Well, let's change that.
We try and be respectful of your time. Sarah's out there actually doing the work, raising money, working with clients. So we try and let her focus on that, but it's always a treat to have you here. So thank you all so much. Everybody that's on the webinar, we appreciate you. Check out Ask Genius if you haven't yet, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks, everybody.